YouTube Ozzico and the Godows is back one day before the NFL trade deadline. Things are already starting to kick into gear. Leonard Williams traded to the Seahawks. Bit of a surprise when it came to compensation. Had my live thoughts on that, live news, rumors, updates on our Twitter as well. So links pinned in the comments. You can check that out. But this video, the top candidates being talked about the most, maybe most likely to be traded, value, landing spots, and a prediction if they are dealt. So excited about this, excited about the deadline. We'll have a great video if more trades happen. But we have a bunch of trade deadline videos. We have weekly picks, power rankings, more. So join us, like, subscribe to notifications on. Again, follow us on Twitter. Check out our sponsors, Liquid IV, GLD Shop. GLD Shop has some nice jewelry, NFL pennants to go with it, like this Giants chain right here. We have a giveaway with them. Code GOAT on both those sites. Links pinned in the comments. Check it out. Starting with MONTEZ Sweat, who I think will get dealt. I think one of him or Chase Young will be dealt. I think it's more likely to be Sweat. So you see some landing spots there. Seattle just traded for Leonard Williams, but Williams and Sweat, depending on how Seattle's going to use Williams, but there are different players. You know, Williams plays over or inside the tackle, you know, splitting between reps throughout his career. Sweat, an edge rusher, plays off the edge outside the tackle. So the Giants paid pretty much all of that salary to help Seattle out. They saved some cap. Are they going to make another move? But they did add Frank Clark as well. So maybe it decreases the chances, but I guess still a possibility. I think most likely, I look at the first four that are listed, but Detroit, which I think would be a good fit, they do kind of rely on development a little bit. Maybe now's the time, though. San Francisco, they traded for Randy Gregory, but maybe a little underwhelming. Farrell's okay, though, and they have Drake Jackson, but they're looking for another guy to, like, opposite of Bosa, to kind of boost that defense. I mainly look at Jacksonville and Atlanta. I think the Jags and the Falcons, the main teams to look at. I love the fit for both. I mean, they both are in the market for a pass rusher. They both are looking for a lengthy pass rusher specifically, looking at their backgrounds. But like what type of pass rushers they look for. I guess I'm more so, the Jags front office does. What I'm more so thinking with the Falcons, Ryan Nielsen coming from the Saints. They kind of have a prototype they look for. And I think he's trying to find his pass rushers for the future, right now and for the future. But, yeah, Jacksonville was probably my original thought. But they do have to extend Josh Allen. They have other pass rushers. Trayvon Walker, Smoot's all right. They could definitely use a guy, but they have to extend Ridley as well. So would it be a rental? What's the situation there? The Falcons want a guy now and for the future. Definitely could pay a guy for the future. So that's kind of where I'm leaning if a trade actually happens. I am not basing that off of Florio's take. You know, if you've seen the rumor that he said because there's rumors floating around that the Commanders have been offered a third-round pick for Sweat. I believe that. Then he said it was the Falcons. I don't know if I'm really believing. It's one of those things where I could believe it. It makes sense, but I don't know if I'm going strictly off that, because he also said Chase Young and the Bears, there was something going on there that ended up being fake news. So it's more so me thinking, you know, the Falcons have future cap space. They need a pass rusher now and for the future. This is a guy that you don't just trade for just for now. You trade for to extend. Makes sense. Ryan, it's a kind of like a Ryan Nielsen, you know, Saints type of pass rusher, like the type of guys they look for, and the type of guy that Nielsen would like with Atlanta that they don't really have right now. Grady Jarrett also goes down for the year yesterday. Now a different position, but they need help to get, you know, after the quarterback. They sign other interior players this offseason, you know, and they're going to miss Grady Jarrett, but they have guys there. They need some more help getting after the quarterback, no matter the position across the line. Here's your opportunity for now in the future. So that is where it makes the most sense for me for the Falcons. That is why I put them there. Round 3, round 5 makes sense. Could it be a round 3 and a 4? Sure. Could it be 3 and 6? I think sure. Could it be like a conditional, like round 3 could turn into a round 2? I think that's a possibility as well. So we'll see. It really feels like the Commanders are going to trade. I got to check my phone in case something happens. Nothing big there. But yeah, so that's kind of what I'm feeling on Sweat right now. We'll talk about Chase Young, who could be dealt. But I think it's more likely going to be Sweat. I would be surprised if it's both Sweat and Young, but I guess they're gonna go off of what they get offered. I think they rather trade Sweat, but if somebody offers a crazy deal, an offer, then maybe they trade Young. But I don't know if they get that. I think his value should be around a second and a fourth. Could it be a second and a fifth? I wouldn't trade him away for that, but I wouldn't trade him away for a second and a fourth either. So I think the Falcons should just hang on to him. So you see some similar landing spots, but more as well, because teams that are also like somewhere in that rebuild process could also get their hands on Chase Young. The Bears have been rumored. It sounds like just rumors for now, but they need a pass rusher of the future so badly. They could use one of those first-round picks on one, but maybe more likely quarterback and something else, receiver, whatever. Cardinals could use the guys in the future. You also could throw the Ravens in here as well. I just think Chase Young's less likely to be dealt than Sweat, but I think it's possible. I was leaning the Lions. I really like him for the Lions because, again, they could use a guy opposite of Hutchinson. But they're a team that likes the young guys. Who wants to, they rely on development a little bit, but you can do that here with Chase Young. You can get the most out of him. And you can still be part of the team for the future. So I love the Lions for him. Last second, I'm kind of thinking, I'm back and forth on that, 50-50, but I'm kind of thinking 49ers if dealt. Again, chances are I don't think he gets dealt, but leaning 49ers because I could see, the problem with them is can they extend him? But I think they would have no issue with just grabbing him as kind of a rental, getting a compensatory pick for him, or maybe extending him. Maybe he wants to stick around for cheaper than he would get elsewhere. It's a possibility as well. Niners are in win now mode. They traded for Randy Gregory. They have players like that are decent. Cleveland Farrell, decent. Drake Jackson, decent. But they have Nick Bosa. I don't know if they're gonna mess around with getting another decent guy. Sweat's almost boring. He's better than those guys I named, but he's kind of is he going to reach his full potential in this year with San Francisco? It's still maybe back off of that. It's kind of go big or go home. I think you get the most out of Chase Young if he plays with Nick Bosa. So if the 49ers, and they have a lot of cap space too, I think it's 49ers or Lions if he's dealt. I'm just not really fully counting on him to be dealt, but we will see when we see what he gets dealt for. I think the Commanders possibly could, based on what I'm hearing, if they do deal him, I think they can take him. They can trade him for less than what I think they should get for him because he has a lot of upside. Obviously, he does have the injury concern, but he's young. Again, a lot of upside. Another pass rusher, Josh Uche, which this one we talked about. Sweat likely to be dealt. Chase Young not so much. Unless Sweat's not, then Young will be. Uche, I think, pretty likely to be dealt. It just a lot of offers being made. The Patriots are open to dealing him. He had a lot of sacks for them a year ago, but they always just viewed him as a rotational, passing down only. He's a unique player here in Josh Uche. Was kind of a hybrid player coming out of Michigan. Is he off the ball linebacker? Is he an edge rusher? What the hell is he? Patriots the perfect spot because they take those type of players and they kind of get the most out of them. They use them in unique situations. It's what they do, so it was kind of a good fit, but they didn't play him on every down. They just kind of play him on passing downs. You don't want him on the field of running downs. He can drop in coverage with that off-ball linebacker experience. So I don't think he fits a long list of teams. I think he needs a team like that will use him that way, and so that's why I have those teams listed. Much different player than Leonard Williams, so Seattle could still make this deal as well. It's tough to figure out the trade value for him because he had so many sacks last year, but I think people looking just at the sack numbers might think he's way more valuable than around 5. But again, only on the fielding pass situations, dealing with an injury this year, specifically really fit the Patriots, their type of play. So not playing right now. It looks like they're looking to shop him, so they don't have to extend him. So I think the value drops. 5th round kind of makes some sense. And the teams that I have listed, I don't think he fits a long list of teams at all. I think it's really just those teams, and I'm hesitant with the Falcons maybe. But yeah, I like it with the Falcons, but I like the other teams more. Seattle's already made a couple moves. Doesn't mean they can't move this. I think he really fits Minnesota. Kirk Cousins going down though. Are they buyers? But I think it definitely fits them. But they have some pass rushers there. I look at the Ravens and the Jags mainly, and I love the fit with Seattle. But they've made some moves already. Again, doesn't mean they won't be on Uche. But Jags looking for a rotation guy, kind of replace Arden Key, who they had last year, who's kind of a unique, you move him around a bit player. So makes a lot of sense, Jacksonville, but Baltimore makes a ton of sense. This feels Uche has Ravens written all over him. Number 1, the Ravens always make these types of deals at this time. Number 2, they need a pass rusher. They run a 3-4. This is a type pass rusher to look for. They always seem to like pass rushers that can drop in coverage. Boom, you got one right here. Michigan background, Mike McDonald, Michigan background. That's kind of like a bonus, nothing huge there. So Ravens, I don't think they want a big be big spenders like financially at the deadline, even though they always make moves. Look for the cheaper guys. Multiple reasons to say the Ravens. I love this. I love the Jags as well. Again, it's a tough break for the Jags because I like they're my second choice for Sweat and UCHE so far. So watch out for the Jags, but just missing out here. But we'll see. We'll see. Again, Seattle can make another move here. I do like the fit. I love the fit in Minnesota, like I said, but I just don't know if they just actually want to make this move right now. We will see. Then Derek Barnett, I've been saying Jacksonville is the most likely landing spot for him, but I think Barnett can play in a 4-3 or 3-4, so that's kind of why the longer list of teams options. I think definitely the other pass rushers are way more appealing. You don't really know what you're going to get with Barnett. He's had some injuries, not playing much for the Eagles. So the other guys are better that we've talked about, but round 6 or a late pick swap makes some sense. Is it worth it for the Eagles for that case? Because they like Barnett as a rotational guy, I suppose, even though he's not playing a whole lot. Maybe get Nolan Smith more involved if he's gone. But yeah, Jacksonville makes sense. Like a guy, versatile pass rusher somewhat, there's a chance they just want a rotational guy. There's a chance they don't want a starter, depending on what their feeling is with Trayvon Walker. But there's a chance they don't want a starter. They have to extend either because they have to extend Josh Allen and other guys outside of the position like Ridley. So they could go for a guy like this if they don't. I think other guys could be higher up on their wish list. A guy similar value, UCHE, I think would be higher up on their wish list. Barnett, I mentioned, Doug Peterson's not a defensive coach, but he's coached Barnett, in Philadelphia, so kind of a bonus there for that one. But, yeah, so we'll see if Barnett gets dealt as well. Not really sure about, chances. Like I've been mentioning, Sweat, I think he does. Chase Young doesn't, but him and Sweat could flip. Like he does and he doesn't. UCHE, I think, does. Barnett, I'm kind of in the middle there. We will see. His name really hasn't been mentioned that much recently, so we'll see. Talking about ADOREE Jackson, whose name's been mentioned a little bit recently. There's a kind of a shortage on good, healthy corners out there in the NFL right now. Some teams really looking for corners. The Lions are looking for one. They play tonight. I think a lot could depend on what happens tonight with the Lions. And I think they're going to need a corner either way. I think they know that, but they're probably going to determine if they need they're going to go, we want a starter. We want a sure thing starter, or they're going to go, we want a rotational guy. I think what they really want is for Cam Sutton and Jerry Jacobs to be the starters out there. We've seen Jacobs miss last week with an injury. And then Brian Branch can cover from the slot, obviously. So if that's what they really want and those guys are healthy, then they're more likely to go for a rotational guy. But if they decide they want a starter, I think ADOREE Jackson's a really good fit. San Francisco looking for a corner. They have some solid guys out there, but maybe not playing as well in Steve Wilks' scheme. The Bills looking for a starting corner. The Steelers could use a guy. The Raiders and the Ravens are kind of like Ravens, kind of those bonus wild card options. I think round 4 value could be round 5. It's a possibility. I still think he's a good corner, even though he's not playing that great this year. They run a lot of man coverage. They are trying to mix in more zone this year. Except for this past week, it was a lot of man. But ADOREE Jackson, a pretty solid man coverage corner, knows how to use his speed and his athleticism. I think a team would love to have him right now. And his contract was a little questionable at one point, but it's an expiring deal at this point. I like the fit with the Niners. The Niners have a load of cap space to work with for this year to kind of put themselves in more of win now mode. The argument against of using that would be they want it to roll over because they need future cap space, but so that would be maybe why you stay put. But they could use a corner, an ADOREE Jackson, an outside guy. I mean, he could play inside, slot if you need him to, but I think you could get better with him. But they like Ward, obviously, even though he's gotten beat a little bit recently. Lenore's solid, but I think you get better with Jackson. And Isaiah Oliver actually been playing pretty decent ball, whether he's playing inside or out. But I heard they're looking for another guy. They're running a lot more man coverage. Steve Wilks wants to run man coverage. D'Amico Ryans mainly wanting to run zone. So kind of you have cap space going out there and getting a good, solid man coverage corner for Steve Wilks' defense and help you in as a contender this year. I think that's why the Niners, if dealt, kind of make the most sense. But I was kind of split on this one. I could definitely see the Lions if they decide they want a starter, but I think deep down they really want it to be Sutton and Jerry Jacobs. That's what they really want. Bills, I could see. We mentioned, I think I can definitely see those teams. And honestly, we could have some of the corners we talked about. We can have them flip. Like the Bills can get other corner where we've talked about or we're going to talk about, and like somebody else can get Dante Jackson. So that's where it's a little tough because some of these guys, corners could be dealt, and a lot of teams could be after him. But Jackson's value could be going up. 5th round pick, what I came up with. He played fairly well yesterday. Do the Panthers absolutely need to deal him? Not really. He's another year on his contract. That's fairly, somewhat team friendly, I suppose. Again, I think that most likely the Lions want a depth guy. Niners, Steve Wilks was with the Panthers, so that can make Dante Jackson a possibility, but I think there's a chance that the guys they have are better than him, so why mess around with that? Otherwise, I probably would have loved that because the Wilks background, but they may view as the guys they have as just better or around the same, so kind of go big or go home. Some of the similar teams we talk about, but round 5 value, I mainly look at the Bills and the Niners with this one, but I'd say if dealt, the Bills. I think the best coverage fit, like scheme fit, definitely could be looking for a starting corner with Tre'Davious White injured. On the cheaper side for a starting corner in terms of financial, they don't like to. The Bills are hesitant to make these moves, but they also don't want to make one that's pretty expensive. So, Adoree Jackson, Kendall Fuller, we'll talk about a little bit more on the expensive side financially. But, of course, the team trading could also pay a portion, but we'll see. So, the Dante Jackson, Bills, Niners, what I look at there. Kyer Elam, there's some talk about him. Teams making offers. It's a tricky one in terms of value because he was just drafted in the first round last year. So do the Bills want to give up on him already and send him off? That's why it's tricky because the way he's been playing and the inability to get on the field, it says less than a 4th round pick, That's why it's so tricky. But it's no point for the Bills to trade him. He's cheap because he's on a rookie deal. He still has upside. They drafted him because they liked him. He's not even in full 2 years yet. You'd rather just stash him and work with him, get him on the field, rotational corner, than trade him for anything less than a 4th. I don't know if they would even, I don't even know if they would want a 4th, because they just drafted in the first round. But should a team really trade a 4th round pick for him right now based on the way he's playing? So that's why at first I thought what I've been hearing, a trade is possible. A team would love, teams are desperate for corners, rotational corners, a guy that also has upside on a rookie deal. They would love to have him. But because of the trade value, how do you match this up? Maybe it's a little less likely. But I didn't know, teams looking for depth, but maybe a guy for the starter as a starter for the future. All the teams listed are pretty much even when it comes to Elam, but I mainly look at the Lions because they get a guy that can be a rotation. They might be looking for a rotational guy. Rotational guy right away could work his way up. They like the younger guys they can develop, and then they've been trusting the development very much. You can develop a former first-round corner here and make him into a starter. So as a team that I think that would like him for those reasons, I think it'd be the Detroit Lions, but we'll see. Again, it's going to be tough to agree on value. I think if the Bills trade him away for a 4th or anything less, I think they're a loser. But if a team trades a 4th or anything more, I think they're a loser in the deal. So I don't know. I don't know about a 4th. A team like the Lions, I think it'd be pretty good for them. But anything more than a 4th, so that's kind of that sweet spot there, in my opinion. But we'll see what happens. Got to keep checking the phone to see if anything has happened. Teams are calling about Saquon Barkley, but the Giants will not be moving him. We kind of knew they wouldn't be moving him, but interesting. Next, Jerry Jeudy. Now, the Broncos won yesterday against the Chiefs, and they're on a little bit of a win streak, and maybe, and Peyton says they're not looking to trade anyone. That could be, bluff to raise the value a little bit, but maybe they're going to stay put, which I think could be a mistake, and that doesn't mean trade Surtain or Simmons, anything like that, and they should hang on to those guys. But I don't want them to get too confident. They need future. They don't have a lot of cap space in the future. They need draft picks as well. They don't have a lot of draft picks either, so they need that. But Jeudy, Browns, Patriots, Saints, Panthers, Jets, teams I think of. I just really like the Browns if he's dealt. It seems at one point it seemed like high chances. It's less likely now. They want a 2nd. I would not trade a 2nd for him. A 3rd and a 5th is a possibility. That seemed maybe a little much for me as well. But 3rd and a 5th, 3rd and a 6th, somewhere around there, I guess makes some sense there. Would the Broncos accept that, though? That is the question. But if he's dealt, I think the Browns getting a guy that can play outside and inside could help them there. Hunter Renfrow, which the Raiders are really trying to work out a deal to move him out because he's just not playing. They don't want him to sit there anymore. They just want to get something for him, so his value is going to be cheap, probably around 7. New England, more likely for New England now than before because Kendrick Bourne just got injured, a guy that can play the slot role as well, like Renfrow. I mean, a little different, but like Renfrow. So they could look to grab him, maybe makes him more likely. I mainly look at those two teams, the Patriots and the Eagles. The Eagles, they liked Watkins in the slot a lot. He is injured. They signed Zacchaeus to maybe battle with Watkins, maybe take over that spot. He's been a little underwhelming. They signed Julio Jones, even he's getting action, but they're going to want a receiver that can play, and they love receivers that can play in the slot. I mean, even A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith can play there, but they play outside more, rightfully so. So adding a good route running slot receiver that is pretty cheap in value for a team that's just trying to do anything they can to help their chances more and more to win right now makes a lot of sense to me. So Eagles are the team I'm watching there if he's dealt, but there's really no team like pounding the table for Renfrow right now. So that is the issue. Maybe what's in the way from maybe him getting dealt. Josey Jewell maybe less likely now because, again, the Broncos won yesterday. They might just want to – the defense is playing a lot better. I thought Jewell played pretty well yesterday as well. You take him away. Does that stunt the defense a little bit? Maybe a little. It shouldn't be a lot, but they may just hang on to him. So only a few teams that I think are really looking for a linebacker. I mainly look at those first two, the Eagles and the Bills. I think both those teams badly need a linebacker. The Bills are a little stubborn. Otherwise, I would say the Bills. The Bills are a little stubborn, and I have them getting I think corner is more on their to-do list, so – but I can definitely see it. But the Eagles, they're looking to be buyers. They already bought a safety, so what else are they going to buy? Maybe a receiver, maybe a depth corner, maybe a linebacker. I can definitely see them adding a linebacker. They've kind of been scrambling a little bit for one. Defense behind the front. The defensive line has been played a little worse than last year. Everything but the defensive line. So could look to add a guy like that. It's a little more important in the size defense, the linebacker that is. And there's not too many available. People say Jordan Hicks with the Vikings and Brian Flores like him a lot right now. Could they start to sell? Could they went from sellers to buyers or staying put to maybe sellers again because Cousins got hurt. But I don't know. I really, the only obvious, and not even so much obvious, linebacker that could be on the block or available is Josey Jewell. And I think around 5, does it get, for them, the Broncos being a little bit more stubborn, does it go to around 4? It could. But I'd say the Eagles, but I really look at the Eagles and the Bills, but I'd say the Eagles if dealt. But again, really looking at those two teams. Next up, D'Onta Foreman, who's been running the ball he ran the ball well for the Titans. He ran the ball very well for the Panthers. He's running the ball well for the Bears. The Bears signed him, and they almost stashed him. It felt like for this moment. It really felt like that. They had him as a healthy scratch, even though he's their best back, and he comes back, and they almost have to play him because of the injuries, and he looks like their best back, but the Bears are a rebuild team still. They want draft picks. Even last night, Foreman's been running well, but they play Roschon Johnson, their rookie running back, which makes sense because they want to kind of get him going, develop him. They're a rebuild team, but he played more snaps than Foreman. So I think and they'll get other guys back at some point too. So and they keep getting guys back, I should say. So I still think Foreman's available. I think this ended up working out perfect for the Bears because as he was a healthy scratch, he was probably worth a swap or a 7th-round pick, and he's played very well. And there's not a whole lot of good running backs available, and there are teams looking for a running back. I listed a few teams that are hurt or looking for running backs, or could or should be looking for running backs, but there's really one team that stands out here. It is the Baltimore Ravens. They could be looking for more of a physical back inside the tackles. They always love the physical runners in that offense. Gus Edwards had a really good game yesterday, so maybe they hold off, but he has injury concern. Obviously, Dobbins already hurt. They're trying to contend. They could use another back. I love Foreman for the Ravens, so I guess it depends on if he's actually available or not from the Bears, but I love this a lot. The 2 Ravens additions I had in this video, I like a lot. I like that. I really can see them doing it. But this one will depend more if he's available. Like the other Ravens addition was UCHE. We know he's available for right now. Will Foreman actually be available? Next, Jalen Mills. versatile defensive back, veteran, has a lot of experience. He's still playing for the Patriots, but limited snaps. Again, he can play inside or outside corner. He can play safety as well. Cowboys could use a guy like that. The Eagles could, but they did add a safety in Kevin Byard, but they could bring back Mills and use him as a depth corner or a slot corner. So I can definitely see that. The Niners, the Steelers I really thought about the Steelers here. Lions and Raiders are kind of just wild cards, but those first four make a lot of sense. The Steelers could use a depth guy. I mean, Minka's hurt. I don't think Mills can replace Minka, not just because of talent level, but style of play, but maybe. But I think they would more so want him to play the slot or be a backup outside corner. So I definitely can see the Steelers. I definitely can see a reunion with the Eagles. I definitely can see the Cowboys. If I had to pick top three, Niners, Eagles, Steelers, should be a late swap or 7th round pick. But I'm going to go Niners here because they, and I'm not saying, because I had them with Adoree Jackson. I'm not saying they get both, but maybe they get neither. But they can use a depth corner. I think it's a bonus that he can play outside and inside, so it's a depth piece for both, or he can start at either. He also can fill in at safety. Maybe the safeties have been a little underwhelming in coverage this year, so he can fill. He's depth all over the place, and he can possibly start for you. So, and they're trying to run a lot more man coverage this year compared to past. He's ran a ton of man in his career, especially with the Patriots. So that is why the Niners make a lot of sense. But the Steelers kind of growing on me with injuries and the lack of options there. But that's where we're going to end this one, actually. A new trade can. The Commanders lost yesterday, so they could be sellers. Teams can think they're sellers possibly. Kendall Fuller, teams are calling about him. I have no word yet if they're actually interested in moving him. He's by far their best cornerback. And he's had a really solid career. He can play outside and inside. The Washington's mixed up their. I think we've mainly seen cover 3 and man coverage over the last several years. This year, a lot of cover 3 from Fuller, where he's really thrived. Again, really could thrive outside or inside. I like the Bills a lot. Looking for a good solid outside corner, so I can definitely see that. Lions, it's going to depend. Maybe after the night, if they need a starter or if they want a high end rotation guy. Because again, I think they really want to start Sutton and Jerry Jacobs if they're healthy. If Jacobs is healthy. The Niners, maybe more so go for a man coverage guy, but I definitely could see that. Steelers, Raiders. I like the Steelers a lot because they can use a starting outside corner. They can use a starting inside corner. And they could just use an upgrade here. So you get a big time upgrade. Value's a little tricky. It sounds like they could just accept the 3rd round pick for Montez Sweat, which I think is lower than expected. And even though Fuller, you could argue Fuller is a better player on that defense in terms of trade value, Sweat should have much more. So if Sweat's going to go for a 3rd, then maybe Fuller goes for less, but it's got to be, if it's a 4th, it's got to be more along with it. I think a 3rd round pick makes sense though. So I'll say Steelers, but I can see Jalen Mills for the Steelers. I think this is much better, but much more expensive in terms of what you have to trade away. So we'll see. I guess we talked about the Lions a bit in this video. I think a lot kind of with the cornerback position maybe rides on tonight. Again, are they looking for a starter or a rotational guy? Could they be in on a pass rusher as well? Could they be on a running back, like in case they need somebody, like I would like a guy like Foreman for them. They need somebody like to back up because they need a Montgomery type player, but like to back him up or if he's hurt, but we'll see. So maybe this is a surprise. I thought Leonard Williams could get dealt. But I thought that was a surprise for multiple reasons. I knew the Seahawks were going to be active and looking for guys, but he feels like a Draymond Jones type player, so what's going to go on there? I guess they have a plan. But I thought he would go for a 3rd or 4th round pick. Expiring deal, been a little underwhelming recently. A good player. I think the Seahawks, I think he'll be good with them. But a 2nd and a 5th, to Seattle, it was a little surprising. Player was a candidate, so him getting traded, not that surprising. The Seahawks were a buyer candidate, so not surprising, but putting those together and what they went for, maybe a little bit. But again, if multiple trades happen, we'll have a grades video on deadline day or just after. We have a playlist full of trade deadline videos. You can check those out. We have weekly coverage with picks and power rankings, recap video for week 8 already out. So join us on our channel. It'll be much, much appreciated. Check out our Twitter if you want live news and rumors, combining those two. Updates, my instant thoughts, a lot of things. That's on our Twitter. You're missing out if you're not following it. Links pinned in the comments for that. Anything else you look for. It's going to do it. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.